안녕하세요. 저는 샤니 레이델 비헤르토스입니다. So sit back and relax. We're going to travel to Korea. Korea is equally known for its green and hilly countryside dotted with cherry trees and centuries-old Buddhist temples. Plus, its coastal fishing village, subtropical islands, and high-tech cities such as Seoul, the capital. But Korea was really a big hit country right now just because how they promote their tourist spot through K-drama and Korean food that people around the globe were loving too. Seoul is also a city of palaces, with 5 huge palace complexes located throughout the city and now restored to their former glory. Of course, it's also known for its food with mouth-watering array of street food, Korean specialties like barbecue and fine dining options. Tourism in South Korea refers to the tourist industry in the Republic in Korea. In 2012, 11.1 million of foreign tourists visited South Korea, making it the 20th most visited country in the world and the 60th most visited in Asia. Most non-Korean tourists come from the other parts of East Asia such as Japan, China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. The recent popularity of Korean popular culture, often known as the Korean Wave, in these countries has increased tourist arrivals. Places you should visit when going to South Korea. Seoul Tower, rising almost 400 meters above the city, this is communication and observation tower provides dramatic views of the city from its perch on the side of Mount Namsan. Actually, Seoul Tower is also known as Namsan Tower. A cable car wheels you up from the side of the mountain to the base of the tower. You can actually see this Seoul Tower if you're watching K-drama. You can actually see this Seoul Tower and Namsan Tower. Bukchon Hanok Village. This preserved area of several ancient neighborhoods gives you a feel for what it was like to live in Korea in 600 years ago. It right in central Seoul in the area between the Gyeongbokgung Palace and the Changjukgung Palace. The neighborhood features hanoks or traditional Korean houses. It's a unique place as its historic area, very popular with the tourists, but it's also a real neighborhood because the houses are all occupied. Some of the hanoks are now guest houses and a bed and breakfast, and a few are museums and can be toured. Others are cultural centers showcasing traditional crafts and other historic aspects of Korean life. Actually, Koreans were really fan of antiques. So if ever that you go to Korea, there you can actually saw some stores that actually selling some antiques like mugs. They have like that. National Museum of Korea. This must-see attraction in Seoul showcases the incredible history and artwork of Korea and the Korean people. The museum, one of the largest in Asia, is in the city's Yongsan district close to Itaewon. It focuses on archaeology, history, and art and includes a vast collection of works and objects going back more than 1,000,000 years. There are ancient and prehistoric artifacts, sculptures, paintings, and other artworks along with a large collection of objects and antiques. Korea became a colony of Japan between 1910 and 1945. During the colonial period, Japanese was the main language through which English terms of communication were imported into Korea. Especially at times when teaching and speaking Korean was prohibited, as Japan actively imported Western culture and technology in the years that followed, the earliest English loanword evolved. After the Second World War, U.S. culture and language had the deeper influence on Koreans with the arrival of the U.S. Army. There are 5 commonly spoken languages in South Korea, that is English, Japanese, Chinese, Russian, and Korean, but Korean is the official language spoken in Korea. Actually, there are 6 dialects in Korea, which are Gyeonggi-do, Gangwon-do, Chungcheong-do, Gyeongsangdo and Jeolado, Jeju-do. The Korean language is made up of its own alphabet and writing system. It is spoken by almost 80 million people and is official language of South and North Korea. It is also an official language in the Yanbian region in China. The word Korean can refer to the language, people, or an aspect of the culture. Typically, when people say Korean, they are referring to South Korea. However, Korean can also refer to anything in the Korean peninsula and its history. What language is Korean most similar to? Korean shares some sim- What language is Korean most similar to? Korean shares some similarities with both Japanese and Chinese. Korean is similar to Japanese in terms of grammar and sentence structure. They both also have their own unique writing systems that is fairly easy to learn. However, the Japanese writing system also uses adapted Chinese character called kanji. The Korean writing system also uses something similar called hanja, but are not used as often as in Japanese. Korean, Japanese, and Chinese have the same way of constructing their sentence. It comes from right to left, while we construct our sentence from left to right. That is why when studying to English, it actually makes them more confused. But Koreans think that it's easier to study English when going to Philippines or studying the Philippines, so that is why don't be confused if you have a Korean classmates or Korean colleague. English terms or abbreviations that are adopted in Korean lexicon and was also adopted with increasing usage during the 60 years that the United States occupied Korea. The example are the skinship is a act of bonding through physical contact. King Car used to describe a male who is popular due to handsomeness. Selka, or also known as selfie in Korea.